1801, Thomas Jefferson became the first president to be inaugurated here. At that time, this was a tidal plain of tobacco fields, cornfields, bluffs, and wetlands, which has now been transformed into the bustling metropolis we see today.
The Washington Monument is an orientation point. You can see it from almost anywhere in the city. At its completion, it was the tallest structure in the world, only to be surpassed by the Eiffel Tower a year later. The Washington Monument is still the tallest freestanding stone structure in the world. A tribute to George Washington was proposed in his lifetime, but it would take decades of off-and-on construction to complete the Washington Monument. Due to funding shortages and the Civil War, it didn't open to the public until 1888. Those construction delays are responsible for the different shading of marble seen about a third of the way up the structure. Stones for the monument all came from the same quarry, but from different sections within the quarry.
The Washington Monument is among the district's collection of memorials, statues, plaques, and tributes of all kinds. Each symbolizes the strength and the stability of the nation. This doesn't mean that the nation is static, as new memorials are always in the works.
What does it take to establish a memorial in the nation's capital? Patience, for one thing. A memorial needs congressional approval, the signature of the president, a design concept, fundraising efforts, and the site selection before groundbreaking can begin. The process takes years. Memorials are usually sponsored by non-profit organizations or citizens groups and built with private funds. Newer memorials are increasingly complex. They involve multiple elements and strike a balance between commemoration, education, contemplation, and celebration. On average, between 5 and 10 memorials are authorized by Congress each decade, which means there's a good chance on your next visit to Washington, D.C., there will be a new memorial to see.
Let's go back in time to the 1600s, when the area across the river from Alexandria was just open fields covered with thousands of blue flowers. That's why today we call it Blue Plains. Native Americans were the first to live in the Blue Plains. They fished in the Potomac, hunted wild game, and farmed. They lived in the area until the mid-17th century, when war and disease wiped out most of their tribes.
European settlers took over the land and transformed it into tobacco plantations. Tobacco made the settlers rich. They built huge brick mansions where modest Native American campsites once stood. Tobacco dominated all aspects of life. It was even their currency. With tobacco as a valuable commodity, the shipping industry started to grow, which meant there needed to be a system to pay taxes. One of the ports of entry was right here in Blue Plains. Ships docked and paid their dues to the King of England. No tax collecting goes on in Blue Plains these days, but it is the site of another rather unpleasant task, dealing with the sewage of the Washington, D.C. area.
Located on 150 acres of the Blue Plains land is the Blue Plains Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant, the largest water treatment plant in the world. Yes, the world. It's an amazing facility. Water from drains, downfall of the German U-boats and their mass wolf pack attacks.
The lab also helped to develop GPS technology, a satellite-based navigation system that does everything from aid in military strikes to helping you with driving directions in your car. We're using it right now. The commentary you're listening to is being triggered by GPS points along the river.
If you're thinking, what's been happening lately? The answer is a lot. The Naval Lab is a leader in artificial intelligence, space systems research, and tactical electronic warfare.
restaurants, shops, and playgrounds, maybe a bit like yours. Except we bet that your neighbors don't walk around in fatigues and salute each other.
You may have noticed a large silver building. This is the DIA. That's DIA, not CIA. DIA stands for the Defense Intelligence Agency. What's the difference? Well, they both share a common goal of protecting the U.S. against foreign and domestic threats. The Central Intelligence Agency mostly focuses on providing intelligence to the President and his cabinet, while the Defensive Intelligence Agency provides intel for military operations and combat-related missions. September 11th, 2001, a hijacked airplane crashed into the west side of the building. This was 60 years to the day from the groundbreaking ceremony which took place here in 1941. Today, a memorial stands at the exact spot where the attack occurred. It's made up of 184 stainless steel benches, each one set atop a small reflecting pool to honor every individual who perished in the attack. As horrific as the attack was, it could have been much worse. Many of the offices on the west side of the building were under renovation and empty. It was also the only side of the Pentagon built with steel reinforcements, which kept it from collapsing for 30 minutes, enough time for many to escape.
Washington Memorial Bridge and the Theodore Roosevelt Bridge are the impressive Watergate steps, which lead up to the magnificent Lincoln Memorial. There's nothing scandalous about these Watergate steps. They were originally envisioned as a dramatic entrance into the city for VIPs arriving by boat.
The Lincoln Memorial is fashioned after an ancient Greek temple and surrounded by 36 Doric columns, one for each state in the Union at the time of Abraham Lincoln's death. The memorial was dedicated in 1922. Lincoln's only surviving son, Robert Todd Lincoln, was in attendance.
Inside is a stirring marble statue showing the 16th president in contemplation. If the statue looks more than a little lifelike, it's because Lincoln's hands and face were based on a cast made while he was still alive. Carved inscriptions of Lincoln's famous addresses, including the Gettysburg Address, line the interior walls. President Lincoln led the country through its greatest triumph, the Civil War. His notion that freedom is one of the most enduring birthrights Americans possess paved the way for the abolition of slavery.
Here's something that's not in the history books. On a few of the support columns are cartoons sketched by workers who built the monument. The National Park Service calls it historical graffiti.
The memorial has become a gathering place for groups demanding social and racial justice. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech on the steps. In 2011, Dr. King got a memorial of his own. It's no accident it's located within view of the Lincoln Memorial.
Well, it didn't work.
John F. Kennedy once said, "If art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his vision wherever it takes him." In tribute to the president's lifelong support of the arts is the striking Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, designed after the great concert halls of Europe.
The building is deceiving in size. It's large enough that the Washington Monument laid on its side would fit inside with room to spare. It houses 6 separate concert halls. For one of the halls, the architect imported marble from Italy that was cut from the same quarry Michelangelo used for his masterpiece sculptures.
President Lyndon Johnson turned the first shovelful of earth at the construction site in 1964. It was no ordinary shovel, but the same gold-plated shovel used in groundbreaking ceremonies for the Lincoln and Jefferson memorials. The Kennedy Center opened in 1971, and at the request of former First Lady Jackie Kennedy, Leonard Bernstein wrote and performed a Requiem Mass honoring the late president.
It is a very busy place. This cultural hub hosts about 3,000 events a year. It's home to the National Symphony Orchestra and the Washington National Opera. With its latest expansions, this venue for the performing arts has added a destination for living theater. Visitors can now immerse themselves in the creative process in a variety of indoor and outdoor spaces.
said it reminded them of a graceful ocean liner. Others said it was just kind of clunky and out of place on the waterfront. But all discussions of design stopped in 1972 when a burglary took place at the offices of the Democratic National Committee here at the Watergate. The investigation led straight to the highest office of power, the President of the United States. President Richard Nixon had ordered the break-in and participated in the cover-up. He resigned in disgrace in 1974.
Georgetown, which is ahead of us, is an ultimate and easygoing 18th century tobacco road town. It's now a hip, action-packed neighborhood with trendy restaurants, wine bars, and
There's for my folks
designer
right
shops.
here. I'll let you get your picture in, but I don't mind moving inside onto this side for me. I got a client on mine right here. Thank you.
If you like browsing antique shops and fine art galleries, head to the
I'm
Oak Hill
just
section
even
of
over
town.
there, further back for me, because I might whack you with this pole here.
Georgetown has an old-fashioned charm with quaint cobblestone streets and 18th and 19th century architecture. Perhaps that's why it's home to so many politicians, power brokers, diplomats, and journalists. Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Graham Bell, and John F. Kennedy are just a few of the people who called Georgetown home.
Georgetown is a nationally designated historic district, so there are plenty of landmarks to visit. The Old Stone House is the oldest standing building in D.C., built in 1766. According to some, it's the town's most haunted. Then there's Dumbarton House, an historic home with period furnishings, art, and gorgeous gardens dating to the early years of the Republic.
Nation and the oldest Catholic university in the U.S. Just a couple of miles from the dock, located on the hill above Georgetown, is the National Cathedral. The idea for the cathedral originated with George Washington, but it wouldn't become a reality until 1990. It's a magnificent structure that was the site of the state funeral for President George Herbert Walker Bush.
The cathedral is adorned with thousands of architectural features, gargoyles, and so-called grotesques, which are carvings of creatures intended to drive away evil spirits. We imagine there are some Star Wars fans with us today. Well, believe it or not, one of the grotesques is of Darth Vader, which can be found on the northwest tower of the cathedral.
Y'all are ready to pop off.
Okay, folks, well, welcome to Georgetown. Just a reminder, we're going to be here for some minutes for those of you departing.
Just watch your
Get
step
off.
right here.
We're going to take
Yeah,
on
no
a few more
problem.
folks will be headed back down for Alexandria. Please watch your step and enjoy the rest of this beautiful day.